Tonight, you're about to hear a story that feels like it belongs to a world of twilight and quiet wonder. A true story, but one that sounds like a dream. A story that begins far above the ground, where the air is thin, where the sky looks endless, and where the idea of survival becomes almost abstract. And yet, somehow, one woman fell from that height and lived. So as you settle in now, allow your shoulders to soften, your jaw to loosen, your breath to slow, and your thoughts to become less urgent, less sharp. There's nothing you need to solve tonight, nothing you need to remember perfectly. Just a gentle story, told slowly, carefully, like a quiet lantern moving through fog. If your eyes are open, they can become heavy. If they're already closed, you can let them stay that way. And if you notice your mind wandering, that's perfectly fine. It's allowed. In fact, it's welcome. Because the best sleep stories aren't meant to be held tightly. They're meant to drift through you, like warm air from a distant fire, like soft snowfall in the dark, like waves that keep arriving, even after you stop counting them. And so, we begin, not with the fall, not yet, but with the woman. Her name was Vesna Vulović, before she became the subject of records, newspapers, questions. Before strangers spoke her name as if it were legend. She was simply a young woman in Yugoslavia, in the city of Belgrade, living a life that was ordinary in the way most lives are ordinary, full of small habits, small hopes, small routines. She wasn't searching for danger. She wasn't trying to tempt fate. She wasn't chasing a dramatic story. She simply liked the idea of travel, the feeling of movement, the sense that the world was larger than the street you woke up on, larger than the shop you passed each day, larger than the familiar rooms where time always felt the same. And there is something quietly comforting about that. The idea that the world is wide and that you can belong to it. Vesna applied to the national airline, JAT, and became a flight attendant. It suited her, the uniform, the calm professionalism, the gentle responsibility of helping people feel steady in the air. Flight attendants become experts in calm. They learn how to smile when someone is nervous, how to speak softly over the hum of engines, how to create normal life, even when you're floating above clouds. There's something almost peaceful about that job. In the moments between service and announcements, in the quiet passes down the aisle, in the soft clink of a cup placed gently on a tray. And in those days, Vesna was like many young people, curious, hopeful, thinking about the future the way people do when they're still learning what life can be. And then, one winter day, a small administrative mistake, a mix-up of names, placed her onto a flight she was not meant to be on. Just a detail in a schedule, a simple error, the kind of mistake that usually means nothing at all, except maybe a mild inconvenience, a different crew, a different departure time. But sometimes the smallest details are the ones that change everything. The flight was JAT, Flight 367, a routine journey on paper, a calm path across winter skies, a plane moving through a world that looked quiet from above, snow on the ground, pale light in the distance, and cold air that made everything feel sharp and clean. Passengers boarded with the ordinary thoughts of passengers, They carried coats and bags. They held tickets and passports. They expected nothing extraordinary. Some were tired. Some were quietly excited to arrive somewhere new. Some simply wanted to get home. And Vesna, in her uniform, stepped onto the aircraft with the calm familiarity of someone who had done this before. She was not thinking of danger. She was thinking of routine, of doing her job well, of the small tasks that fill a flight. The doors closed, the cabin settled. You can almost hear it. The soft sounds of seatbelts, the quiet murmur of conversation, the rustle of a newspaper, the small clearing of a throat, and the steady hum as the plane begins to move. There is something soothing about that hum. It's like a long, low note. Constant. Steady. A sound that tells your body you can relax. Outside, the winter world stretched beneath them. Fields dusted with snow. Dark shapes of trees. Small patches of light where towns waited. Above, the sky was calm, not dramatic, not stormy, just pale and wide, the kind of sky that looks like it will remain that way forever. And when you're high above the ground, the world feels distant, almost quiet, as if all the noise of life becomes small enough to ignore. Vesna moved down the aisle, checking, adjusting, offering help. Her presence was steady, comforting, professional. And then, something happened that no one expected. It wasn't turbulence. It wasn't a sudden storm. It was different. A sharp disruption. A force that didn't belong in the ordinary flow of flight. Investigators later believed there had been an explosion. Something placed where it should not have been. But tonight, we won't tell this story with harsh edges. We won't push the fear forward. We'll let it remain at a distance, like thunder far away, something you notice, but do not need to hold. Because this story isn't about fear. It's about something else. In an instant, the structure of the aircraft changed. The world shifted. Metal tore. Air rushed. The cabin broke, and the plane separated into pieces. High above the landscape below, the sky, so calm, became a place of sudden motion. And in that moment, Vesna's life changed into something that no one could plan for. What happened next is difficult to imagine, because the mind prefers stories with clear paths. It prefers stairs, not cliffs. It prefers doors, not sudden openings into air. And yet, there she was, in the sky, in a reality where the usual rules no longer seem to apply. Somewhere in that chaos, Vesna remained inside a section of the aircraft's tail, a piece of metal and structure that folded and twisted, creating a strange enclosure, not safe, not designed, but protective in its own accidental way. And as that piece fell, it did not fall like a single body in open air. It moved differently. It turned. It caught the wind. It slowed, just enough, in ways no one could calculate in that moment. Above, clouds drifted past like pale ghosts. Below, the earth waited, far away, quiet, cold, snow-covered. And Vesna was unconscious. That detail matters. Sometimes the body protects itself by turning down the lights. Sometimes awareness fades, not as an ending, but as a kind of shelter. The fall was immense, 10,000 feet, a distance so large it becomes hard to feel real. But while her body fell, the world around her continued with the calm indifference of nature. Winds moved through the mountains. Sound is absorbed by snow. Movement slows. Even the trees seem to breathe more softly. In that forest, tall pines stood close together. They were strong, but flexible. They had weathered storms, heavy snow, and long years of cold. And as the wreckage entered the upper canopy, branches began to break, not all at once, not like a single impact, but layer by layer, as if the forest was slowly catching what fell. Each branch absorbed energy. Each snapping limb slowed the descent. Each layer of snow softened what would otherwise have been catastrophic. And then, at last, the wreckage came to rest. Silence returned. The kind of silence that follows shock. The kind of silence where the world seems to hold its breath. Somewhere inside twisted metal and broken structure. Vesna remained alive, not uninjured, not untouched by tragedy, but alive. Hours passed, night settled, cold pressed in. In moments like this, time changes. It doesn't rush forward, it doesn't retreat, it simply stretches, wide and quiet, as if the world itself is listening, high above the forest. The sky returned to stillness. The rush of movement had passed, the chaos had faded, and what remained was calm. A calm so complete it almost felt unreal. Clouds drifted slowly, the air grew colder, and the sound of the fall disappeared into distance, as if it had never happened at all. Down below, snow continued to fall. Soft flakes settled onto branches, onto broken metal, onto the forest floor. Layer by gentle layer, snow has a way of quieting everything it touches. It absorbs sound. It smooths sharp edges. It turns even disruption into stillness. And now, the forest was quiet again. Tall trees stood patiently, as they had for decades, as they would long after this night passed. They did not react. They did not judge. They simply stood, holding what had fallen among them. Inside the broken structure of the aircraft, a human body remained still, breathing softly, unaware of the sky above, unaware of the ground below. There are moments when consciousness fades, not as an ending, but as protection. The body knows when to rest, when to slow, when to close the door on awareness, until it is safe again. And so, time passed quietly. Minutes stretched into long, indistinct moments. Moments blurred into one another. The forest did not hurry. Wind moved gently through pine needles. Branches creaked softly under the weight of snow. Somewhere far away, an animal shifted in the dark. But near the wreckage, everything remained still. Cold wrapped itself around metal, around trees, around the snow itself. And yet, beneath that cold, life continued. A breath. Slow, shallow, steady. If you listen closely now, you might imagine it. The smallest sound of survival. Persisting in silence. This is where the story pauses. Not to create suspense, not to demand attention, but to allow the mind to soften. Because the most important moments in life are often quiet ones. Moments where nothing happens. Moments where the world waits, and waiting can be peaceful. As you listen now, You may notice your own body responding to this stillness. Your breathing may slow, your shoulders may feel heavier, your thoughts may become less distinct. That's natural. Stillness invites rest. And here, in the forest, stillness was everywhere. Snow continued to fall, each flake unique, each flake brief, each flake dissolving into the quiet whole. Above the trees, the sky darkened. The light of day faded gently, not suddenly, not sharply, but like a dimmer slowly turning down. Twilight gave way to night. Stars appeared faintly through drifting clouds. Cold air settled deeper into the valleys, and far below, in a village tucked among hills, lights glowed warmly behind windows. People moved through evening routines, unaware of the story unfolding in the mountains above. Fires burned in hearths, dinner dishes were cleared, voices murmured softly indoors. Life continued, as it often does, even while extraordinary things unfold elsewhere. And that contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary is part of what makes this story feel unreal. A human life balanced quietly between sky and earth while the world went on. As minutes passed, the forest remained unchanged. It did not panic. It did not hurry help forward. It simply held. Holding is something nature does very well. Trees hold soil, roots hold hillsides, snow holds sound. And now, this forest held something far more fragile. A life. If you imagine that forest now, you might picture darkness. But it wasn't frightening darkness. It was the kind of darkness that feels full, alive, resting, the kind of darkness that allows sleep. And as you lie listening, you might notice that your own surroundings feel similar. Perhaps the lights are dim. Perhaps there is quiet around you. Perhaps the world has slowed. That's no accident. Stories like this mirror the rhythm of rest. They move, and then pause. They speak, and then allow silence. And in those pauses, sleep finds its way in. If your thoughts drift now, let them. If images blur, that's perfect. You don't need to hold the details. The story will continue, whether you're awake for it or not. Because some stories aren't meant to be followed step by step. They're meant to be felt, and then gently released. The forest remained patient. Snow softened the edges of wreckage. Cold preserved the quiet. And somewhere within that stillness, a life waited. Not struggling, not calling out, just waiting. And soon, someone would come. But not yet. For now, there is only the quiet, only the slow passing of time, only breath, and rest, and stillness. And as this section draws to a close, you can let yourself sink deeper. There's nothing to anticipate, nothing to prepare for, just the steady comfort of knowing that even in silence, even in darkness, life can continue, and you, right now, can rest. In the nearby village, far below the crash site, people lived ordinary lives. They ate dinner, they tended fires, they moved through evening routines. And then, some heard something. A distant sound, a heavy thud far away in the mountains. A man named Bruno, a woodsman, listened. He had lived near forests long enough to know when a sound did not belong. He put on his coat. He stepped out into the cold. His breath formed pale clouds in the dark. The forest at night feels different than in the day. It becomes deeper, more secret. The branches above seem to lean inward. Snow glows faintly in moonlight. Bruno walked slowly, carefully, following instinct, following sound, following that quiet pull that sometimes guides people towards something they don't yet understand. The deeper he went, the more the air smelled like pine and cold metal. And eventually, he found what had fallen: wreckage, broken trees, a strange shape in the snow. And then he heard something else, not loud, not clear, a faint sound, like a shallow breath, like a small human noise that shouldn't have been there. He moved closer, and there she was, a young woman in uniform, unconscious, injured, but alive. It was so unbelievable that at first he thought he must be mistaken. He looked again, listened again, yes. Breathing. He acted quickly. He wrapped her. He tried to keep her warm. He called for help and began the slow work of getting her out of the forest. When people arrived, the scene must have felt unreal. Like a story told around a fire. A story that begins with catastrophe and ends with a single heartbeat continuing. Once help was on the way, everything slowed again, not the kind of slowing that comes from fear, but the kind that follows relief. The forest no longer felt like a place of danger. It felt protective. Lantern light flickered softly against snow-covered branches. Footsteps pressed quiet paths into the white ground. Voices stayed low, careful, respectful of the stillness around them. The night seemed to lean back, allowing people to work. When a life has been found, there is a gentleness that takes over, a natural instinct to move slowly, to keep calm, to avoid startling what is already fragile. Vesna was lifted carefully, wrapped, protected from the cold. She did not wake. She did not need to. Her breathing remained steady, soft, consistent. That alone felt like a small miracle. The journey out of the forest took time. Paths were narrow, the ground uneven, snow deep in places, but no one rushed, because sometimes the safest movement is slow movement. As they carried her, the forest began to thin. Trees spaced farther apart. The darkness softened. Somewhere ahead, lights waited, warm human light, and as those lights grew closer, the night released its hold. In moments like this, time feels different. Seconds stretch, minutes blur. There is no urgency in the mind, only focus, only care, only the quiet understanding that something precious is being carried forward. If you imagine that scene now, you might feel it differently than you expect. Not tense, not dramatic, just calm. A group of people moving together, united by purpose, guided by care. There's something deeply comforting in that, because it reminds us that even in the most unexpected circumstances, people show up. Not loudly, not heroically, but steadily. The forest gave way to open ground. Vehicles waited, engines idled softly, cold air mixed with warmth from within. And slowly, carefully, Vesna was moved again, from forest to vehicle, from isolation to connection, and all the while, she slept, protected not just by blankets, but by the quiet rhythm of people working together. As the journey continued, snow drifted past windows, lights blurred into soft shapes. The world outside felt distant now, less sharp, less important. Inside, there was warmth. Inside, there was breath. If you notice yourself relaxing further as you listen, that's natural. Stories of rescue have a way of easing the nervous system. They signal safety. They tell the mind that danger has passed, that it is okay to let go, and so your body may respond by becoming heavier, your breathing slower, your thoughts quieter. That's exactly what should happen. When Vesna finally arrived at the hospital, there was no rush to explain everything. Doctors worked carefully, methodically. They focused on what mattered first: breathing, circulation, stability. Medical lights glowed softly overhead. Monitors hummed quietly. The world narrowed to simple priorities, and simplicity is often calming. In those early hours, no one spoke of records, no one spoke of headlines. There was only a patient and a team, and the quiet determination to preserve life. Time continued to pass. Outside the hospital, the night deepened. Inside, warmth held steady. Vesna remained unconscious, but safe, and safety, even when unperceived, matters because the body knows when it is no longer alone. And as that safety settled in, her breathing remained calm, steady, unhurried, much like your own breathing now. You may notice that the story feels softer here, less detailed. That's intentional, because the closer we move toward rest, the fewer details we need. The mind does not need complexity to feel secure. It needs rhythm and reassurance and the quiet understanding that things are unfolding, even if we're not watching closely. As doctors worked, the night passed. Darkness gradually loosened its grip. Somewhere, far beyond the hospital walls, the sky began to lighten, not suddenly, just enough to hint at morning. But inside, time remained gentle. Moments blurred into one another, and Vesna still slept, her body doing what bodies do best when given the chance, healing slowly, naturally, patiently. And now, as this part of the story comes to rest, you can let yourself rest too. You don't need to follow every step. You don't need to anticipate what comes next. The most important thing has already happened. She survived, and you are safe, breathing slowly, comfortable, held by the quiet of the moment. The rest of the story will be there, whether you stay awake for it or drift gently away. Vesna was taken to a hospital. Doctors examined her injuries and did not understand how she had survived them. They were trained to see patterns, to see probabilities, to see what usually happens. And this was not what usually happens. Her skull had been fractured, her spine injured, her legs broken. Her body had endured forces that should have ended life. And yet, she remained. In the days that followed, she drifted in and out of awareness, consciousness returning like a slow tide, and retreating again. When she finally woke fully, she was confused. Her memories of the fall were not clear, not sharp. That too is a kind of mercy. Sometimes the mind protects us by keeping certain doors closed. Doctors told her what happened, and imagine that moment, lying in a hospital bed, hearing a story about yourself that sounds like myth. They told her about the crash. They told her she had fallen. They told her she had survived. It would have been easy to feel fear, to feel anger, to feel crushed under the weight of what had happened. But Vesna, in the accounts told by those who knew her, carried herself with a quiet resilience. Recovery was slow. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Her body healed the way bodies heal, gradually, patiently, with pain and persistence. There were moments of frustration, moments of exhaustion, moments when the future felt heavy. But she kept going, and over time her survival became known beyond the hospital, beyond the village, beyond the country. Reporters wrote about her. Strangers spoke of miracles. Guinness World Records took notice. She had survived the highest recorded fall without a parachute. A record no one wants. A record no one trains for. A record that exists only because one person lived when logic said she would not. People asked questions. They wanted explanations. Some pointed to physics the tail section creating a crude protective shell, the way it may have caught air and slowed the fall, the way it broke through trees and snow. Some pointed to physiology that Vesna had low blood pressure, and perhaps that protected her from shock in a way that seems almost impossible. Some pointed to something less measurable, fate, luck, whatever word people use when they can't accept that a sequence of events could align so perfectly and so strangely. Vesna herself, when asked, did not speak like someone selling a miracle. She spoke simply, quietly. She called it luck, and sometimes the simplest answer is the most soothing. Because the truth is, life contains mysteries that don't need to be solved for us to live peacefully. It's enough to know that sometimes a human being can survive what should not be survivable. That sometimes the world can break, and still, in the fragments, something continues. As you listen now, you might feel the story beginning to soften around the edges. You might notice your thoughts slowing. That's good. Let them slow. Let your breathing become deeper, longer. Imagine the warmth of a fire, not roaring, not loud, just steady, a consistent glow, a gentle crackle that doesn't demand attention. Imagine the air around you as calm. And in that calm, you can continue to drift through the rest of this story. Not rushing, not pushing, just allowing. After her recovery, Vesna returned to life in a new way, not as someone chasing drama, not as someone desperate to prove anything, but as someone who had seen how quickly the world can change. People sometimes assume survivors become fearless, but often survivors become gentle. They learn to value quiet mornings, soft voices, small kindnesses. They learn that life is made of ordinary moments, and that ordinary moments are precious. Vesna lived for years after the crash. She became known as a symbol of resilience. And yet, she remained human, not a headline, not a legend carved in stone, a person who liked music, conversations, and the simple comforts of life. She did not spend her life trying to recreate the sky. She did not seek danger, but she also did not let fear take everything from her. There is something powerful in that, something soothing, the idea that even after the unimaginable, a person can still find a way to live. If you notice your mind wanting to race, bringing up questions, why her? Why that flight? Why survival dash dash? You can let those questions float away like leaves on water. Questions don't need answers tonight. Tonight is for rest. And as the story continues, it becomes less about the facts and more about the feeling of falling asleep to something mysterious but safe. Like hearing a story in another room while you drift off, knowing everything is fine, knowing you are not required to stay awake. So let the story become softer now. Imagine the plane again, before the rupture, before the chaos, the hum of engines, the warm cabin lights, the ordinary human calm. There's a lesson hidden in that normality. Most of life is normal. Most moments are quiet. And the quiet moments are the ones that truly shape us. Now imagine the winter forest below, the trees, the snow. The way snow makes the world feel muted, protected, wrapped. That forest did something rare. It caught what fell. And you tonight can also be caught. By your bed, by your blanket, by the softness of the room you're in. You can let yourself be held by the simple fact that you are safe. Breathing in slowly and breathing out even more slowly, in and out. And as you drift, the story begins to repeat itself in a gentler form, not in words, but in rhythm. Sky, snow, silence, warmth, sky, snow, silence, warmth, a calm cycle. Some people, when they hear a story like Vesna's, feel unsettled. They think about fragility, but sleep stories can transform fragility into something else. Because yes, life can change suddenly, but life also contains softness, kindness, miraculous rescue in the form of a woodsman walking into the snow. And that is worth remembering, not in a sharp, anxious way, but in a soft, comforting way. There are people in the world who help, sometimes strangers, sometimes friends, sometimes someone you never expected. There is a quiet goodness that continues. And as the story winds down, your mind can stop holding it. The details can fade, the names can blur, the images can soften. It's enough to know there was a woman, high above the ground, and somehow she lived. Now we slow even further. Imagine a fire burning low in a hearth, not bright flames, just embers, a warm, steady glow. The room is dim, the air is still. Outside the world is quiet, or perhaps rain is falling softly, or wind is moving through distant trees. And your body is heavy now. Breathing slow, shoulders loose, face relaxed. If thoughts come, you can watch them pass. If you lose the thread of the story, you don't need to pull it back. Just drift, just rest. Because the end of this story is not an ending. It's a descent, a gentle glide into sleep. And as you glide, you can let go of everything. Let go of tasks. Let go of tomorrow. Let go of the day behind you. For now, there is only comfort. The soft hum of a voice, the quiet glow of a fire, the slow unfolding of calm, and somewhere in the distant sky of memory, A story fades into silence. Good night, sleep deeply, and if you wake later, even briefly, you can remember. The world is wide, the night is calm, and you are safe. And now, there's nothing left to follow. The story has done its work. It no longer needs attention. You don't need to remember names, or places, or events. Those details can soften, blur, fade gently into the background. Like embers settling lower in a fire, the warmth remains, but the movement slows. Your breathing becomes the focus now, not something you need to control, just something you can notice. Breathing in, slowly, comfortably, and breathing out, even more slowly. Each breath out allows your body to sink a little deeper, into the bed, into the chair, into rest. Your shoulders feel heavier now. Your jaw relaxes. Your forehead smooths. If thoughts appear, you don't need to follow them. You can let them pass, like clouds moving across a night sky. They don't ask anything of you, and beneath them, there is quiet. Imagine that forest again, but now in complete calm. No movement, no urgency, just stillness. Snow resting on branches, the ground soft and undisturbed, everything exactly where it should be. Or imagine a fire burning low. Not flames, just glowing embers. A steady warmth, a gentle light. No sound except the faintest crackle. Barely there, just enough to be comforting. You don't need to visualize clearly. Even vague impressions are enough. The mind doesn't need detail to rest. It needs permission. And you have that permission now. Nothing is required of you. The day is finished. The night is holding you. Breathing in and out. Longer pauses between breaths now. Your body knows how to sleep. It has done this many times before. All you need to do is allow it. If you feel yourself drifting, that's perfect. If you lose track of the words, even better. The voice can become part of the background, like a distant sound in another room, present, but no longer important. The world outside your room is quiet now, or at least quieter. And inside, there is safety, there is warmth, there is rest. Thoughts may slow into fragments, images may come and go. You don't need to hold on to them. They can dissolve naturally. The way dreams begin, breathing in and out, slower, heavier, more relaxed. Your hands feel warm. Your feet feel supported. Your entire body sinking, supported, held, and now, even the story itself begins to fade. The words soften, the pauses lengthen. Nothing new will happen. Nothing needs to. You are already where you need to be, resting, calm, safe, and as sleep deepens, the voice may continue, or it may disappear entirely. Either way, your rest continues. There is nothing else to listen for, nothing else to wait for, just the steady rhythm of breath and the quiet comfort of the night. Good night, sleep deeply, and let everything else drift away.